So I'm going to start a PRS. I'm going to use this piece of maple that's 1.5 inches for the top. So it's going to have an unusual cap. Most guitars, you'll have like a 1/4 inch of carve, and then you'll have the majority of the body is actually the back, and the cap is usually a really thin piece. But since this is what I have to work with, I want the maple to be on the top, because this quilting is awesome. So it'll have a maple top, about a 1/4 inch carve, and then about the remainder of this 1.5 inches, so about 3/4, after I shave everything, whatever, will be maple. And then the back is going to be black walnut. The neck is going to be black walnut, and this is the piece I'm going to use for the fretboard. It's got some quilting in it. Once it's stained, it'll look pretty cool. I'm going to bind this with Purple Heart. Then on the PRS body, I'm going to run 2 Purple Heart pinstripes up the left side of the body. So I'm just now starting to see if I have enough lumber to do this. You know, what else would it take? And it looks like I have everything I need with just leftovers. So I'm going to get started. I'll probably get to cutting out the neck blanks today. I'm going to cut out 3 1-inch pieces and then laminate them together with their grains running perpendicular to the fretboard. If I get that glued up quick enough, I'll move on to the body and try to get the back glued up, and because this board is really warped. I don't know how. I'm gonna have to run it through my thickness planer and get a good face on it for jointing, you know, to the top. And then I want to weigh these together to see if I actually need to chamber this cap, because it'll be a bigger guitar. But this wood is really light, so I don't know. I'm gonna start on the neck. So I've got my 3 pieces of black walnut. This is the top. I flip it up on its side so that the grains are running like this, and the fretboard goes like that. They're perpendicular to the grain. So I'm going to glue these 3 together, and this will serve as our neck. It's 1 inch thick. I'll put a 1/4 inch fretboard on that, and then that gives me plenty of play on the bottom side to, rip off to about, we're probably going to go to 0.8 at the first fret. I like the way that felt. So let's glue these. So I've got our neck blank glued up. Looks good. Seams are real tight. The grain's pretty. It's gonna work. So I've got my top right side with the short horn. There's not going to be any. I'm going to put pinstripes on this thing. I'm going to put 2 Purple Heart pinstripes down the longer side. And so this side is the less quilty. So I'm going to put the pinstripes in this board before I glue them together. This will be the right side. So I'll cut these out so I can handle them and then orient them the way I want. This is the back. This is the face that's going to glue to this. And I'm actually going to glue these sides together first. It's the maple top and this, and then joint these. It's just easier to do it that way, because I can run these through my thickness planer and then get a good clean edge on my table joiner. So right now I'm getting ready to cut out the body halves and then start up the pinstripe. So I'll need to take 2 chunks off this Purple Heart and get a strip from this guy. I'm thinking I'm going to space them by, I don't know, 1/4 inch, and then have each pinstripe be about 1/8 inch. So I gotta get to cutting. All right, so I've got my 2, halves of the body. So we're gonna have a, thick maple top, black walnut back. I'm gonna put a pretty hefty carve on this. So with the carve, we're looking at coming down to about the same width as this piece of oak. So about there. So it'll look like a Oreo with the cap taken off. But these pinstripes should tie it together because they're throughout the top. So I'm thinking it'll look pretty cool. So right now I'm going to glue these 2 sides together. I'm going to do that by putting this in my bench vise, standing up, and then use this other bench vise to clamp the top. And then I've got some long clamps, and I'll put some pressure on it, let it sit overnight. Seam turned out really good. The center line is off of the seam, you know, about, I don't know, 1/4 of an inch. So this is actually our center line right here. This seam should disappear. It's the same board, and so the grain matches really well right here. I really like how it's like the heart. I've got the quilting on the outside, so this thing should be pretty slick when I'm done. Because the tenon's going to be sort of short, because it's going to have I ordered some Seymour Duncan Fat Cat P90s that are in a humbucker case. So I'm only going to get about that much down, you know, space for my tenon. And so I'm probably even going to kick this up a little bit more to act as my cap, and then I'll carve the heel, you know, it'll actually roll into the bottom of the body. So once I set the neck in here, I'll be able to cut in and have more glue space, you know, so that it's a stronger joint. I bought a wraparound bridge, Tone Pros wraparound. So it's going to be real simple, you know, 2 humbuckers, wraparound bridge, volume, tone, and a switch. And I haven't decided if I want to get crazy and try to put like a push-pull switch in there to work with phasing, because these will be P90s. So it's like having 2 single coils. So I can really play around with the phasing with just a few selections, rather than having like a full super switch and, you know, 5 different choices. P90s are pretty cool because you can do that. There's a lot of wiring diagrams for tellies that use super switches, and 2 P90s, in my opinion, it's pretty awesome to use those mods with, because they're just 2 single coil pickups. But you get a really fat sound out of them because they're overwound. So I'm going to glue these up and quit talking. We'll get on to cutting the scarf joint in our neck. Here's the black walnut neck. So I'm thinking the tenon's gonna go to about right there. It's gonna be a pretty slick looking guitar. I'm really liking the way these colors are coming together with the big fat top. So I'm excited about this one. So we got everything glued up. Joint came together really nice. There's like 0 error between the sides. 2 halves matched up perfectly. Really happy with. Sometimes it's not always that easy. You got to go back and back and back. This has turned out really good. I'm really excited to see what the carve's going to come out like, because I'm going to try to incorporate the carve into these pinstripes as much as I can. So we'll see. About to cut our scarf joint. I'll go with 14 degrees on this one. You know. So I got the body glued, neck is all glued up. I'm about to cut out the fretboard. So I'm going to use this piece of black walnut. It's really pretty. It's got some curl in it. It's interesting. Once I put some, you know, stain on that, it's going to look really cool. And it's going to be bound in Purple Heart. So it's going to look really nice with the maple. So to do that, I'm going to just cut this guy in half and then throw it in my thickness planer until I get it down to about 1/4 inch. I like for my fretboards to be a little more than 1/4 inch before I start putting a radius on it. I'd just rather have more wood than not. You know, you can never add. It's really easy to take away though. So let me cut this out. So I've got the frets, the slots cut out. Still need to put a radius on this, but I'm not going to put a radius on it until I've glued it to the neck. So the bridge came in, and so I could actually, you know, draw in my taper. These are the strips of binding that I'm going to use. They're pretty thick, so I've got all of that laid out. What I need to do now is flatten the top of this neck blank. So I'm going to run it over my planer, get this so it's nice and flat. Then I need to install a truss rod. Then I can glue the fretboard on, hog off, you know, the excess, and then I can start, you know, setting where the neck's going to be. I'm only doing, is it 20 frets with a big healthy lip? I think I'm just going to do 20 frets. I'm going to put P90s in this, and so I want them to have extra growl. And you can get that by kicking them towards the nut a little bit. So those should be here soon. All the hardware is going to be nickel. I'm going to do a wraparound bridge. This bridge is, I think it's going to be too tall, and I don't want to do an angle in the neck. I want the neck to just be flat with the body. And so the way I'm going to get around that, so I think I'm going to set the posts and then make a template and router a recess right here. So the bridge will actually sit in the body. Doesn't have to be much, you know, maybe like 1/8 of an inch would be enough. Because I want this neck to sit in pretty deep, so I have a lot of, you know, healthy glue face, so that you get a good, you know, that sustain. And so I'm hoping that this sits out maybe just a hair above the thickness of the fretboard. And it's a pretty thick fretboard. It's 1/4 inch right now. But this guitar is going to be really pretty. I'm excited to see how it turns out.